So yeah, I am a painter, you know, I'm a trained painter, as she said. But then sometime around 10 years ago, I stumbled into animation, and it's really pulled me in. You know, I love it. It's a great medium. It's a medium that's constantly evolving. It's sort of on the brink of it sort of had its revolution about 5 years ago, being especially because of the you know, digital stuff that came in and sort of opened up all the possibilities for animation to, you know, explore and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, animation, that's me. So yeah.
Perhaps, yeah, we're gonna do this, you know, typical opening sort of stuff. Maybe, you know, we know that you did a video spot for the Rolling Stones. We know that you did this live visual set at Queen Elizabeth's 60th anniversary. So these are your like top achievements. I mean, how did it get that far?
Well, the first thing is you have to sort of, you know, it's a very cheesy cliche, but it's true that you have to follow your dreams, right? You have to, you know, take risks and put yourselves in sort of uncomfortable situations where, you know, your very sort of financial existence or whatever is at stake. You know, you have to bet on your talent. You know, there has to be some sort of confidence. I mean, usually the confidence comes from that's really the only thing I know how to do well, right? Most other things in life I'm not that very good at, but this is sort of a niche that I feel sort of comfortable doing, and I'm like, you know, I get immersed, I forget about myself, I forget about the world, I like to do animation, stuff like that. So I always thought, you know, if you have your own sort of motor that keeps you running, there's like, you know, that's a good indicator that maybe you do have a unique voice or whatever. Because when you first move to a big place like London is, right? You know, there's millions of people there. I mean, the competition is like enormous. You know, you're dwarfed by the size of the whole sort of animation scene in London. You know, just imagine. You know, as a segue, at one point I wanted to move to Berlin from London, and I was looking up animation production companies, and they have about 30 in Berlin, right? In London, they have about 300 listed. You know, so London is really the center of, you know, like at least the motion graphics, visual sort of media, or one of the biggest, you know, one of the big centers globally. But anyway, what I wanted to say is like, but then when you come to London or any place like that, you know, soon you realize that they're not any better than you are, you know. They're not, you know, usually you because you come from a small community, relatively sort of obscure country, you have that special something that maybe, you know, the vast majority of the people do not have. The funny thing about, you know, us growing up in former Yugoslavia or whatever, then we used to grow up on cartoons and animations that were really from the late 60s, early 70s, but then they were mixed with the stuff from the 80s, you know, whatever. But you had you grew up watching a very Eastern European, you know, oriented sort of visual language that was like flat, more abstract, more leaning on modernism or whatever, you know, because on the, you know, my friends from England, they were all watching like, you know, He-Man, you know, whatever. But we were watching Balthazar, you know, we were watching Gustav, which is very dark. If you go and watch Gustav now on YouTube, I'm like, you know, we were like 5 years old, and the guy is, you know, it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, everything with Gustav. I mean, it's very dark. So we were exposed to a different visual language than my colleagues were in Britain. So they have, you know, they used to do, or I should say, they are used to a certain type of strategy of visual expression that is different to what we are accustomed to. So that I knew instantly when I came there and was talking about animation films or whatever, that we have something, you know, something special. We have something unique, and that's what I think was the thing that was my MO that got me through, you know.
So you thought you could really
Jesus Christ,
take
that was a long answer, wasn't it? It was like,
benefit from all
Yeah.
this legacy, which was quite particular maybe to this place, but you could, but you know, was what I was actually going to ask you, but about this transfer, like, because you're, yeah, so formally you're a painter, but this shift, this switch between, you know, painting, which is still an animation, where, about all this really
So what
technical
was happening?
knowledge.
So
How
the
did
thing
you?
is- yeah, so painting is static, is always there, you know, and then, I mean, it's static if you just glance at it. In reality, the painting is moving, it's constantly evolving, it's, you know, it's boiling. It's boiling with, I'm talking about good painting now, you know, it's boiling with meaning, and, you know, the forms are changing, everything is relative to something else. Because painting is beautiful, why? Because it doesn't have the slavery of the one perspective view of the camera. Like the photographic camera has that one perspective view, you know, where all the, you know, all the lines converge in the one eternal, you know, thing on the horizon. But painting sort of flips that around, you know. In painting, you have different perspectives, or you can have different perspectives, different parts of the canvas. Your eye is constantly moving, you know, the light in the room is changing, so the colors are changing. So it is a live thing. I don't know what I'm explaining it in such detail, but anyways, but what animation had that painting doesn't have is time. By time, I mean, like Tarkovsky said, you know, sculpturing time. I mean, you literally, time is one of the components in animation that comes to the forefront. So you are dealing with drawings or paintings or whatever, but time is the thing where you know, you cut a shot, you show something else, or the form evolves or whatever. But it's not only that. In animation, you have, in traditional animations, you have, you know, 24 frames per second, meaning you have to have 24 drawings per second, or then you do double drawings, or as they say, you animate on twos, meaning you have 12 frames per second, 12 times 2 is 24, whatever. But then, as I was saying, a digital revolution came. No, okay, for me, why I stumbled into animation, well, animation really sort of absorbed me, was because my alter ego was into music, right? So I recorded a couple of albums. I was into music, because that was the funny component. Like, music is the most abstract of the arts, I would say. It's the most abstract art of all. It's like mathematics. It's just, you know, relationship ratios and stuff like that. It's divine in a way, because it doesn't need a medium. You know, okay, the air is the medium, but it doesn't need, you know, a canvas. It doesn't need oil paint or whatever. You know, it's just purely abstract. And once music fades out, it's gone. It just ceases to exist. I mean, it has, you know, it left an imprint in you, but, you know, apart from that, it's gone. Whereas painting, you know, it hangs there or whatever. So that component of time from music and the visual, you know, thing from painting sort of merged together, and that's how, you know, I thought, oh, animation. I mean, you don't know my paintings. My paintings were very, they were just on the brink of movement. You know, I had little figures that were, everything was in movement, whatever. So animation was just like a logical next step for me personally, whatever. It sounds more epic than it is, really. It's not that thing. I mean, once I realized I could do, I honestly think being lazy in this business is a good thing, because I didn't want to go the long road, you know, the long way around it. I wanted to find shortcuts, but in order to find shortcuts that work, you have to be resourceful, sort of clever. You have to know a bit about technology and stuff like that. That's what motivated me. Like, I took pleasure in knowing that I only that I created something in 20 minutes that took someone, you know, 2 hours, whatever. You know, that was nice, because that enabled me to focus the rest of the 1 hour, 40 minutes or whatever on just the creative thought process, you know.
And yeah, and just before, as we were talking, about when photography first emerged as a medium, how painters reacted to the emergence of photography and what it meant, in fact, for painting. Would you say, or maybe just comment on this? Does this also apply to now this new medium,
absolutely.
animated?
I mean, yeah.
Like sort of stepping in the way of.
I have no problems
painting?
repeating it. This is my mantra, okay? Whenever I have 3 beers, I start talking about photography and painting and animation and digital media, how that all happened. It is my view, you know, that we are currently in a similar sort of situation that the painters were when photography was discovered. So when photography was discovered, painting was absolved, or how to say, released from the spell of needing to represent reality in a naturalistic, realistic sort of way, because you had photography that, you know, has done that better than, you know, from that cruel one point perspective, but still better than painting did. So painting was free to explore other, you know, possibilities of form or, you know, expression or whatever. You know, photography was invented, and then you get the pre-impressionists, you know. You get Degas, you get Manet, you know, you get all those marvelous French painters that started to, like for example, Degas literally was, you know, going to photographers' studios and, you know, taking photographs from the bin, because photographers discarded photographs that had, like, you know, a figure split in half because they were out of frame or whatever. Because what happened, photographers at first, or for the first 20 years, were, for the most part, imitating painters. So what they did was they just staged a mise-en-scène or whatever, like an allegorical scene. Everything had to be lit perfectly, everything was in frame, still, you know, figures were posing. It was like, almost like taking a picture of a historical painting, right? So there was no self-reference, you know, there was no self-reference of photography to its own, you know, to the nature of its own medium. But, you know, painters realizing that, you know, if you have a figure that's cut in half by the frame, or it's even blurred a bit, gives us that, it gives it the immediacy, you know, like a dynamic or whatever. So the painters took it like a Degas, you know, and then painted, you know, and, you know, figures were chopped by the frame or whatever, and you felt paintings were more true to nature, or more true to the experience of nature than photography was, you know. But now, I would say we have a very similar sort of situation with the digital media, because I work in digital animation constantly, at least for the past 7 years. Professionally, we do all sorts of projects from traditional animation to stop motion to 3D graphics, motion graphics, lyric videos, music videos, whatever. But we always come up against this sort of hurdle where we need to humanize the digital output. Meaning, what we need to do is, like, we need to take the line that was drawn in the computer and texturize it and make it boil. In other words, make it seem as though it's been done by hand. So we're mimicking something, we're mimicking the nature of a medium that's in a way past. You know, it's in the, I mean, it's not past, but medium of the past, with new technologies that don't need to. So what we're doing is, like, for example, we code in a noise that distorts the line, or textures that boil on the surface. So when you look at it, you think, oh, this was done by hand, but in reality it was done in the machine, you know? It was digital. So as I explained to you earlier, the most banal example, if I have two extreme keyframes, right? Hand here and the hand over here, traditionally you would go pak, 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 do every drawing in between to get the movement like that, right? But now, of course, everybody knows this. In digital, you punch in the first keyframe, which is this. You punch in, 60 frames later, a keyframe that is this, and the computer interpolates between those. But what happens is you lose all the mistakes, you lose all the breath, you lose all the organic sort of stuff, all the tiny boils. I mean, that were in between those two extreme keyframes, which made it feel alive. This looks just robotic, right? So then you introduce all those things I was talking about earlier, but it is interesting how much effort goes into humanizing digital media. We're still on topic, right? So.
Yes, I suppose, yes. So, like benefiting from all this technology that is now available, would you say maybe that, I mean, it is because it is, I suppose, stories that you want to tell.
Stories, you say?
So, yeah.
Oh,
so,
absolutely,
so
yeah.
So all this technology now enables you, us, you artists
Exactly.
to tell stories. What,
Yeah.
how important do you
Absolutely,
feel this
it's
is?
what I am experiencing is the liberating force of this new medium. You know, it actually gives you the opportunity to make your own short film or even a feature just by yourself. You know, just with a computer. Like a lot of my painter friends or whatever, they're scared of the computer. They're actually against the digitalization of visual media, but I embrace it. I think it's beautiful as long as you know its limits, and as long as you know what you're dealing with. You know, you don't need gold to make art, do you? I mean, you can make art out of anything. And what I like about digital is that the thing that I'm working with on my computer screen is absolutely and totally virtual. It doesn't have any haptic qualities. It doesn't exist in a way. You know, it's pure light. It's just light, right? And what I can do is I can manipulate, the software or whatever the tools at my disposal, are, and tell a story or move someone or create an emotion or a visual thing that has meaning. At least to me, it does.
What could be such a meaning? What are these stories to you? What are the themes of your stories?
Well, it really depends. Like I was at a festival with a guy. I mean, you have fractions in animation. You have fractions. You have the purists who say, who have declarations like no computer was used making this film, right? And that supposedly gives it a value. I think it's bullshit, but like supposedly it gives it. Then you have people who only do digital and have no, it's like, but it does boil down to the story. Do you have something to say? Don't you? And what is the perfect media to express this in? That's the thing.
Okay, I will just interrupt at this point to say that maybe questions from the audience, something there, yeah, we could, yeah. So?
What would you want to see? Okay,
Rock works with trunk animations.
Let me see. I'll show you a short film I made, okay?
And please, just anyone,
Is that all right? There isn't sound, is there? Is there? There comes the guy. Here we go. There we are. This should work.
slimy. I was a beautiful creature there, a musco creature, a creature of the sea. But before all of that, long before that, I was a star.
There we are. Good. So yeah, we do all sorts. Yeah, so this was, I mean, it's self-explanatory. I don't need to explain the film, do I? Yeah. Yeah? Okay. So the main idea was, I had this fantasy, what if all my predecessors, all my extended family, by extended family, I mean extended back to the cavemen, would gather in a little forest and have a little dinner party, whatever. Who are they? Who were they? How come they met? I mean, if you just start thinking about it, I mean, well, I think Stephen Fry was talking about, I think you only need to go back 5 generations and everybody's related or something like that. It's mental, so I just really wanted to show where, the title of the film is One of a Kind, and it's sort of ironic, isn't it? It's one of a kind. We're not really one of a kind in a way, and that's what I wanted to show. So at the end, you see the fish and the boy in the reflection, but before that, we weren't even alive. We were stars or whatever. It's really straightforward, but yeah. So the guy who did the music, it was great. I mean, the music is great, and the guy who read, who read the voiceover loud, is a famous British actor, but like he could read a phone book and would sound like Shakespeare. It's like very sort of deep voice. Like, how do you? What's for dinner? Or like he could say whatever. Yeah. I know it's really tough. I mean, I'm here just to if anyone has questions, we're doing it in English because we have guests who don't speak Slovene, so just so
Yes.
everybody can be on board, and that's.
And
the
of
reason.
course, anyone has a question in Slovenian, it will be
Oh yeah,
fine.
yes, no worries.
Technical, whatever.
So yeah, but we do all sorts. Like you don't have to do character animation to be an animation. One of our directors, Layla Atkinson, she's not a very good character animator, but she's a very good animator per se. She can animate typography or textures or whatever. There's different types of visual expression in animation that you don't need to be all Walt Disney or whatever.
But in this respect, you're really a self-taught artist. Nah? I'm still going back to studied like academically trained painter. So, but this whole technological thing, these
Shit.
programs, yes, shit or shift
Yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Behind
really
it is
easy.
something you.
This is not heavy duty stuff. I mean, people who know a bit about computers know that this is not. So, I mean, the thing is, you have to have a visual sense and a storytelling sense in order to, do something. I mean, let me show something else. Not that it's
you.
good or anything, but just as an example, really simple thing. Where is it? I just wanted to do this literally because of how it looks. It has no real meaning, but still I do think it's interesting. that's it, you know. It's like I really liked the way it looked, you know, and the colors and stuff like that. And I think it works. Like I can show you something else while I'm showing things. Like a really simple idea. Just a moment. So this should be the same thing. There we go. It's really straightforward, but I thought, you know, it deserves a film. Yeah, so that's it. It's just things inside other things, really. You know, but I thought inside it's about hidden meaning all of a sudden, isn't it?
But this whole
I'm going to show you another stupid thing I did. So you won't think I'm all artsy. So this was one of the early ones when I was, this must be like, yeah, there we are. 5 years ago. It's actually older, but you know, I did this when I was looking Yeah? Okay. Anyways, you know, you can tell any story you want to, really.
and this whole beautiful childlike fairy tale like
Yeah.
imagery. Where does it feed? What is?
Everybody
Yeah.
has it. I mean,
What's
it's-
your inspiration and what's your favorite color?
You just
Well,
wanted. What's my favorite? What's my horoscope sign? Scraping
Shoe
the bottom
size.
of the barrel
Yeah.
there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if anyone has any questions, I think, you know, or.
Please, audience. Yeah, come on. Okay. Whatever you prefer.
Okay. The videos that you showed us, these were all written and animated by you. What about when a client contacts you about animating for them? Do you get to participate on the process of
course.
creating the story?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the thing is, you're absolutely right. Like most of the, I mean, depends on what the client wants, right? So, if they want a sort of 5-minute hand animated thing, obviously I can't do it by myself because usually, you know, the deadline is 3 weeks or 4 weeks is the top, you know, you get on commercial projects like that. Clients, that's a whole nother topic, you know, because usually in animation there is like the lowest bar we sort of go. This is our policy. Like we never take anything below 5K, meaning 5,000 pounds, because we can't, you know, do really anything for that amount of money or lower that we would want to sign our name to, you know. So we sort of guarantee a certain that there's a limit, you know. But on the top, there's no limit. You can go, you know, into hundreds of thousands or whatever, you know. It just depends on what the client wants, really. Now, you do get to animate. Usually, I do about 80-90% of the work on every commercial thing. Like this thing we did for the Rolling Stones, I did 2 things for the Stones. I practically did it by myself. The first thing, the Doom and Gloom, it's a lyric video. I did in my pajamas from home. I had you know, I had the flu, I had you know, fever, whatever, and did the whole fucking video from my bedroom, for example. So you don't need a big, you know, team. For other stuff, you absolutely do need, you know. People sometimes are overconfident, think they can do all, you know, all the things themselves, but they can't really. Depends on the technique. I hope that answered your question. Yeah. No?
What about the sound, the voices? They are important, I think, because we do this strange thing called synchronization. So if with this kind of images, I'm sure the sound is important. So how do
Oh,
you
it's
choose
like the
the
sound.
voices?
Literally, the sound is half of the picture. You know, it's so important. We work with a studio called Phonic, and Phonic are a very well-established sort of sound design studios. They're our friends. They do things like Thomas the Engine. What's the Slovenian word for? You know, the train, Tomaž Vlakec, whatever. They do Peppa Pig. You know Peppa? No, you don't know that.
Tomaž.
Whatever. They do big sort of, you know, very commercially successful stuff. Because we're friends, I'll try and find something that you'll see. I mean, sound design makes such a difference. It literally is half of the story. I'm sort of pressed now to know or to show you a piece. One thing I might show you, it's not really all about sound design, but it's like about conveying meaning without any character animation. It's by Alan Jock. It's 2 of our directors. They're from Scotland and they're great. And they've done this sort of really nice thing for New Look. New Look is like a textile brand. It's like Zara or something like that. And you know, in Britain it's very popular. So we did this commercial for them, and it's just about. So the client wants to convey a message, right? And then you find appropriate visual analogies for it, you know. And I think this one is really nice. It has sound design in it, and I think the sound design really works, you know, really, you know, pulls everything together. I think this is a beautiful piece, you know, and the sound design is really sort of subtle, but it makes all the difference, believe me, you know. So yeah, absolutely, sound design is imperative. I always want sound design. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you start your works by
I personally always go directly into the machine. Even my sketches, my thumbnails, my storyboards, my animatics, everything is done in digital. It just gives you options later on. And you know, there's like, but you have, you know, there are no rules. But digital helps you with, you know, because usually the client has an unrealistic deadline. That's like the rule. You know, they want things in 5 days or whatever. I had 5 days to do this, to do the Rolling Stone thing. I keep coming back to the fucking Rolling Stone thing. I don't want to, but it's just like it was mental. I had literally 5 days. So the 5th day was the delivery, right? It was just me and my girlfriend doing.
We
I
want
don't
to.
have to show it. It's
We
fine.
want to hear about it. I think, yeah, no, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
You know,
something.
you know.
But the thing is, like, you have to realize with clients, right? I've done 4 music videos for the Rolling Stones now, but 2 have been published. You know, so you get like they change their minds, they put it on the shelf. They're like, but you can't complain you didn't win a lottery if you don't buy the ticket. You know what I mean? So we were paid for every project, but clients, as I said, that's a whole another sort of chapter of, you know. We had very intimidating clients. They came to the meetings with helicopters. Helicopters landed on the roof, and they came to the meeting, right? They were like big bucks, whatever. It was the worst project I ever worked on. It was horrible. And then you have clients with very little money, but a great vision, or, you know, they give you creative freedom, and that's a joy to work on. So there's no rule, really. I mean, we've been, yeah? bed for 5 days. I ran out of footage at the end. All right.
Seriously, now audience, I encourage you, so ask whatever you like.
In what program did you do this?
Oh, After Effects.
Only After Effects.
Oh yeah. It's all done in computer. I think, alright, I think we talked for an hour or so now. I'll be at the bar if anyone has a question. Is that alright?
Yeah? Good? Okay.
Well, thank you very much. I thought I was speaking into the microphone, but I wasn't. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rok. Thanks, Kibla. Thank you, Rok. Thanks.